Good afternoon. Today's Trainers Underground, we're going to talk about the DDoS attack that happened a couple of weeks ago in October of 2016. And we'll talk about the role that IoT played in it, or Internet of Things, and what can be done about it, or what are some of the challenges related to it. With me tonight is Robert D. Rook from Indiana University, and myself, Donald Hester from Las Positas College. And so we're going to be talking about this today. Want to say hi, Rob?
Hi, everybody. Welcome.
So if you haven't seen on the news, you can probably look it up, but on October 21st, there was a DDoS attack on the Internet that brought down many of the servers here in the United States. And, well, I guess that's not appropriate to say that it brought down a bunch of servers in the United States. It did bring down servers, but you'll see why in a minute, that it wasn't really attacking necessarily the sites that weren't available. But we'll talk about how that works, and how this attack particularly worked is a part of a distributed denial of service attack. So when we're normally on the Internet and we're trying to access something on the Internet, our computers will have to go out and actually find the address for the location of those servers that they want to access. So if you want to go to yahoo.com, you're going to type in www.yahoo.com in your web browser, and your computer's going to go out and find a DNS server, the domain naming server, to find out the IP address of that server so that it can then route your information to that website. And it's a little bit more complicated than this. There's chains of DNS servers, and there's name server indexes and all this other stuff. But the main process is that it has to go and find out the name server for yahoo.com and figure out where the www host address is and figure out what the IP address for that's going to be. And that's the normal process that we go through when we connect to the Internet to access something. Once we get the DNS servers respond back with the IP address, then our computers will send out packets, and they'll be routed across the Internet through all kinds of different means. We don't necessarily know the route it's going to take through the Internet, and that's why you kind of always depict it as a cloud, because there's different routers, and there's more than one way to get to those final websites. And then we can go to the website directly, and then the session will be started, and we'll be communicating back and forth with that server on the other side, like Yahoo.com or Amazon or whoever it is that we're doing it. Now, in our story here, we have to go a little bit beyond just how we normally access the website and say what happened, what did the hackers do, and how did they get into this? Well, the first thing they had to do is compromise a large number of machines. Everything from devices that sit on a network, like your possibly your camera that you have sitting in your home network, to your cell phone, to your tablet, to your PC, to your computer at work, all these different places, or maybe even a computer that you have at school. They have to compromise those machines with malware. And what happens is, after they compromise those machines with malware, they put them on a botnet, excuse me. And the botnet is basically a command and control channel that those machines will listen to, and then the hacker, he or she, will be able to send commands out. Those devices will hear those commands and then execute those commands. So in this instance here, once a large number of machines have been compromised, then we can actually send a command to all of them, and that command could be to start sending packets to a DNS server, as is the case that we had in the last denial of service attack that we just went through. So what will end up happening is the hackers will go in there and they'll tell the botnet, tens of thousands of machines, all of them to start sending traffic to the Internet DNS servers in this case. It will basically overload the network or overload the servers to the point that the servers will not be able to respond because there's so much traffic coming and hitting them. And so it's a very targeted attack. They were just attacking the DNS servers here. And so what ends up happening is, you as a user, when you try to access the DNS servers, you get denied it. In other words, the machines are not able to respond back and give you the IP address of the website that you were trying to get to. The interesting thing about this attack is that the attack wasn't against Amazon.com, it wasn't against Yahoo.com, but it took down those websites because we could not find where those websites are. Because most of us don't know in the back of our head what Yahoo's IP address is, which if you knew what Yahoo's IP address is, you could have said HTTP, IP address, port number, / whatever, and you could have gotten to that server. Unfortunately, we don't remember those things. We remember Yahoo.com, and so we're not able to access it. So those web services that actually have redundancy built in, multiple data centers around the world, which makes it really hard for you to actually launch a denial of service attack against those machines, they were able to circumvent it by hitting a dependency that we have in TCP/IP, and that is DNS, the domain naming service. So by attacking that, they basically ground the internet down to a halt. And I don't know if you saw, you can look online at learnsecurity.com. .org, learnsecurity.org, under the blog. There's a blog post that I posted in the same slides here explaining it. There's a couple links in there, and one of them is a website that shows you a map of the world and shows you all the websites that were that people were not able to access. And you will find out when you look at that some interesting things. One of them was that it was targeted towards U.S. websites. So the DNS servers that were targeted were taking out websites, or you weren't able to access websites that were all in the United States. Couple other things that we learned from it was that they didn't attack the websites directly. They used TCP/IP. It was targeted towards the United States, and I guess, and I don't know, Rob, if you read anything about this, but I heard that it was possibly Russian hackers, but I don't know if they actually came out and said, yes, we're the Russian hackers and we did it. Do you know?
Nobody's officially came out and taken responsibility for it, but everything is pointing to a group of Russian hackers.
Gotcha.
One other thing to note, the targeted DDoS attack was strictly directed to the DIN servers, DYN. Those are a group of servers that actually will, they're a DNS hosting company for a lot of the ISPs, will forward those DNS name requests to the DIN servers to try to speed up that name resolution process for their clients. And that's why it was so effective, is because they just really targeted a small number of DNS servers that then basically wiped out the majority of users' ability to get to those sites because they couldn't actually resolve those names to IP addresses.
Yeah, that's an interesting point about it, that it's easier to have tens of thousands of bots attack, or zombies, attack a very small number of servers. But it also tells you something about the internet, that we all rely too much on certain servers hosted by a very certain company, right? We need
Correct.
to spread that out a little bit more. What do you say, not put all your eggs in one basket? The other thing that was really interesting about this attack that we've been reading in the news lately is that there was a large number of Internet of Things devices that were the zombies, which are compromised machines that are on a botnet, that were the ones that were doing the attacking. So there is a good number of, this is a new, well, it's not really new because Internet of Things has been around for a while, but this is a new vector, or a new large-scale use of this. So I don't expect this to be the last time that we hear about Internet of Things being involved in an attack, but it should serve as a, definitely for most of us, it should, we should look at our risk assessments now and say, okay, now we need to address, if we haven't addressed in the past, Internet of Things devices that we may have on our networks, because there's not much you can do against it, because it can send a packet. So it can do a distributed denial of service attack. The thing that we can do about that is, if we own the Internet of Things devices, what actions can we take? Or if we're developers making Internet of Things devices, what can we do to make them more secure? So what we're going to talk about next is just the Internet of Things and the risk related to it, and how are we going to secure this? because I think that this is a new area. So the first thing we have to talk about is what is Internet of Things. Everybody keeps on throwing this around. Internet of Things, basically, here's one definition of it I found on the internet, but it's basically small, low-powered devices, typically with a very low-powered processor, very little RAM, very little memory, may not even have RAM, may just have solid-state memory, that runs a very particular service, and it is typically then connected to our typical TCP/IP network or our internet protocol network. And because it's connected to that, it makes it very easy for me to use my cell phone to connect in and change my thermostat at home, or to log in to my sprinkler systems to make sure that I turn them off or turn them on, or see how much water I've used in the last month, all kinds of statistics like that. So those types of devices typically don't have a lot of processing power, but they do have an operating system on them. They do have some type of application, and that application then is able to connect to different services on TCP/IP. Maybe I can remotely control it. Maybe it can go to the internet, grab information, and pull it down. For example, my sprinkler system will go out to the weather website. I'm not sure even which one it goes to. It goes down there, pulls down the information, and if there's going to be rain, it actually turns off the sprinklers so it doesn't go through the normal cycle. So it helps save water. So in the winter, I don't have to change anything. It can actually also, there's other things that you can add on to it, and other programs you can make it be dynamic. So if it's really hot, it turns on the water for longer in the morning or whatever. So there's a lot of different really cool things that you can do with Internet of Things. So there's a whole plethora of these devices now, everything from cars to I don't even know what else to say. Healthcare devices, retail has items in there. A lot of our security devices are now being put onto the internet. They weren't on the internet before. Like a lot of the security cameras that we used to use in the old days were all cable-based. You run a cable just like you would for a cable network, and it wasn't connected directly to an internet protocol or a network. It would go to a concentrator that would, you'd plug in all the cables, and then that concentrator would then maybe export it to a computer, or it would just have a display, or it was a very specialized hardware that it would actually just display the images. Nowadays, it's a lot easier and a lot cheaper because you already have Cat5 cable ran in buildings, or you may even just have wireless. You just plug it into the existing Cat5 infrastructure, or you turn on the wireless and you just connect to the existing wireless network. There's a lot of industrial uses for it, like SCADA type devices that used to be on their own separate networks. Now they're increasingly being IP based. I don't know, what do you want to add to that, Rob? Anything else?
Well, it's interesting you mentioned about security devices, because I'll give you a quick scenario about IP-based cameras. So the interesting thing about IP-based cameras right now is there's approximately 73,000 of these devices that are running around that still have the default password set. Nobody's gone in and actually changed the defaults. And this is actually from a security firm that's actually gone out and went through a discovery process of all of these devices wherever they could find them. And like you said, they're IP-based, so they will respond to queries. So if they're not properly isolated on your network, for one, then anybody can hit them. The other interesting thing is, like you said, a lot of these, as an example, IP-based cameras, they have like a small-scale web service running in them to be able to be managed via a web browser. And what's really interesting is they also will accept telnet connections, right, or secure shell connections to them. The funny part is every single one of the firmware updates for all of these IP-based cameras contains the hashed value of the admin password. And the reason why I'm kind of bringing this up real quick is that, let's say I'm the bad guy, I can go to whoever makes the IP-based camera, and I can download the firmware, I can change the extension, I can unpackage that firmware update. I can get the hash value of the admin password. I can run it through, like a rainbow table or brute force attack or something like that to crack or to figure out what the password is based off the hash. And then I can telnet into the device and it doesn't log the admin connection. The reason it's there is every one of these manufacturers has it as a administrative reset in case there's a problem and you're on the help desk with that particular company. They will tell you to log in with this account. So it's kind of a backdoor. So even if you do change the passwords, note that you might want to also go and change the admin passwords with them so that that type of behavior doesn't happen.
Yeah, that's a good point, Rob. Default passwords is a whole other issue that you have to deal with. There's so many devices that have default passwords that nobody ever changes.
Well, but that's the thing that we're trying to highlight here, right?
Right.
The Internet of Things. You're dealing with now all of these devices that you're going to have in your house that unless you do your due diligence and you change all these passwords, even if you forget one, like your home thermostat, you forget it, well, that's now a vector that could be attacked and then used as a zombie in a denial of service attack, and you have no idea that that's happened just because you forgot to change that default password one time. But those are the things that we now, as security professionals, or even just running these devices in our homes, we have to be aware that that's a risk that's associated with using any device that falls under this Internet of Things.
That was one of the things I was thinking about last week when we were preparing for this, and that was that there's so many devices that you connect to your network and you don't even know. I mean, as a regular end user, you go to Best Buy, you buy the Nest thermostat or whatever, you put it in, you don't really pay attention to, okay, well, what kind of security protocols do they have in place for this thing? Because that thing I can access from the Internet. I don't access it directly. I access Nest, and it is connected to Nest. So there is some kind of a little bit of security there. But the question is, it still gets out to the Internet, right? So it's a potential for sending packets out across the Internet. And I could get something on my tablet, then it gets on the wireless network, sees that I have the Nest device, and then attacks that. So there's a number of different ways to get into your network. And I think these devices are everywhere. I mean, they're in healthcare. They're in all these other things. But I guess the next thing to kind of talk about is just how much is it growing, and we're talking like we're at, what are we at? I can't even see the year on this thing, but we're at like 28 billion or something like that, or maybe we're closer to 22 billion. So between 28 and 22 billion devices connected on the Internet. And I don't know if anyone knows any statistics, but how many people do we have living on the world today? 7 billion. Right, so we have a lot more devices than we have people connected to the Internet. And it's going to double by 2020, and by 2020 we're looking at 50 billion devices connected to the Internet. This is huge. It seems like everything is going to get connected to the Internet is what it really boils down to at some level. Go ahead.
I think you're right. I think, like you said, by the time 2020 rolls around, everything is going to be seamlessly interwoven with each other. So, like, you bring up another good point here with all of these Internet of Things devices, right? You mentioned cars. So GM and Uber and Lyft are dumping something like $500 million into research into autonomous driving, right? Autonomous cars. Mm-hmm. Well, how are you going to have autonomous cars drive you around, right? They have to be connected to something in order to pull things down like, address location, mileage distance, speed vectors, all the other cars in the area. I mean, all of these devices in these cars are all going to be inter-networked so that it doesn't have to rely strictly on a digital camera to see, so to speak, right, of what's going on. It can pick up where other cars are based off of their feedback into like a main hub. Well, that's all going to be over the Internet of some kind, right? So these devices are just going to become, like you said, by the time 2020 rolls around, you're going to have 50 billion of these things floating around, right? And you already started to see it now. You have toothbrushes, you've got refrigerators, you've got, IP-based cameras, you've got thermostats. What was the last one I just saw?
Cows.
Oh yeah, cows. Right.
Yeah.
For they keep track of feeding and milking parameters, right? So
Yeah.
just all weird stuff.
Vital
NIST
signs
has
too.
another one. Yep. NIST has a new one for it's like a smoke detector / radon detector that you can get, and you just basically stick it to the wall and you're done. It requires no cables, right? It's battery operated, but like you said, it's a low power draw device that runs for like 5 years or something like that before you actually have to send it in to get the batteries replaced. But that's the same thing. You're talking about these devices that are low power consumption that are sending out all these packets.
Yeah, and the funny thing is you said about the autonomous cars, and the thing that reminded me about that was, I think it was Total Recall when the autonomous taxi was trying to drive the guy around. Anyways, that's here. So people have some weird attitudes about this. This is just from a survey, and I saw this graphic online, so I just grabbed it just to kind of show you that looking at some of the statistics about how people are using Internet of Things and where you're starting to see things like people are browsing the internet on their TVs now, and you can see like it's like 44% or something like that. So this is huge. It's as much as people doing it on their tablets or smartphones, and apparently even more than their desktop or laptop. So, and I'm assuming that includes things like Hulu and Netflix and all those types of services that they're considered browsing the internet. I mean, you're using the internet to get to those, but it's not browsing in the way that you would think of being in an Internet Explorer browser or Firefox browser and going from website to website. So people basically have, they're concerned mostly about privacy, it seems, with the Internet of Things, but it's kind of like a vagueness to most people, I think, out there. But go ahead.
Well, I think a lot of people lived in the land of, in the old days when everything was all paper-based, right?
Yeah.
So, it was very difficult to get certain information because you either had to go there physically in person to retrieve the information and present ID, or it was the information was relayed to you via like a letter, right? Or you went to the office to get the information. Now it seems like today, if you have the right answers to the questions that get asked, you can get anything over the internet. I was driving to work the other day, and one of the clinics in Indianapolis now, for something like 60% of their normal office calls, you can now open up your browser and chat with a doctor / physician's assistant and relay, what your symptoms are, and you will interact with that person, and then they'll call in a prescription if it's just something like, oh, well, if it doesn't require like a lab test of some kind, they'll call in a prescription for you. You don't even have to go to the doctors anymore. Like, that's kind of where you're starting to see a lot of these Internet of Things and people's ability to freely take, the internet as, they don't even think about it anymore. It's become second nature, right? Like,
right.
I'm connected to the internet, and this is what I expect out of it. Not realizing that type of information that is being, relayed across the internet, and who can pick it up.
Yeah, there's a whole other session, maybe a future session we could talk about that, privacy and anonymity online. I was just reading a book about that, talking about the dark web and Tor network and Freenet, I guess is the other one. Just talking about ways of anonymity and privacy and how you really don't have privacy. Like you open up Firefox and go online for privacy, and you really not getting privacy because it's still tracking your IP address. Knows where the packet came from. Anyways,
right.
Yeah, so people's attitude towards it, I think people are just in the process of kind of coming to terms with it. I mean, if you look at it, a lot of the in-vehicle informants are all made, they're basically Internet of Things devices, and this is just another example of this Internet of Things and new embedded devices or real-time operating systems that exist out there, that this becomes another place that people can hack into. And interesting, because what you had said earlier about this is you had alluded, Rob, that there was going to be more information that was going to come out because of this. And I saw this and I was like, wow, that's really huge. Talking about how much data that we're creating. And I remember, I think a friend of mine came over and he works for NetApp, and me and him were talking about gigabytes and terabytes and petabytes and exabytes, and our wives were looking at us like we were crazy because we were talking about these, numbers that, are gibberish completely to them, what's an exabyte versus a petabyte, and now, but now we've gone beyond that. We got a zettabytes and yottabytes, and now we're talking about new numbers, brontobytes. I don't know about you, but that sounds like Fred Flintstone's having the little sliders of those Brontosaurus burgers, but they're called Brontobytes.
Yeah.
Yep. Anyways, so we're creating so much data, and on the slide, I wanted to make a point, that the total number of particles in the observable universe is 10 to the 80th power, and we're talking about making 10 to the 27th number of bytes of data, and it just seems completely ridiculous. Now, we don't save all of that data. A lot of it gets created and then gets destroyed, so a lot of it's temporary data for a short period of time, but if you think of just how massive amount of information that now that we're having with all this, and now in that data, is there information that people could use against you? That gets into the privacy aspect of that, especially for devices that are health related. If somebody is able to get that and you have your information in there, or those devices that now connect to your smartphone or whatever, and then they can relay information to those. I have an old, what do you call it, blood pressure monitor that isn't connected. You had to look at it and you can do this. My buddy was telling me about a blood pressure monitor they're coming out with that can connect to your phone, and then you can upload it to your doctor. So now where's all this data going? This medical information is now being transmitted across the internet. Of course, it needs to be secure. There's HIPAA and all those things, but how much do you trust all that?
Right. Well, that's just like there's a friend of mine in Alabama, a mutual friend, you know him as well. He's a fellow MCT. He has they surgically implanted his diabetic pump.
Insulin.
Yeah, his insulin pump, sorry. But he has another device that, like he'll test his blood sugar, and then the result from the tester goes to, via the Internet of Things, goes to the sending unit, and then he just holds it to the insulin pump, and then it automatically adjusts his insulin levels. But those are all, like you said, those are all trackable because now, once a day he plugs it into the base unit, and then that information gets relayed back to his doctor. But yeah, that's like,
right. Well, I think that one of the things that we have with this, and I think we've touched on this already, and that is the traditional risks that we've had in the past are magnified with Internet of Things. But some of the traditional problems we've had is patch management. As an auditor, I run into this all the time. People aren't keeping up with their patch management. I mean, they'll get a virus, and it was related to a vulnerability that a patch existed for it and has been out for 6 months, but they just never patched it. We still have anti-malware. We still have people that don't have anti-malware installed in their machines. We still have the connectivity issue. These Internet of Things need to be able to connect in and download those patches and those types of things. We still have this least access issue, and we'll talk about that here in a moment because I have a special thing I want to talk about that. But then we also have making sure that we integrate security in the development lifecycle of making these devices in the first place. But here's another one. What do you do when your Internet of Things device, your thermostat, has been compromised? How do you fix that? It's not the traditional way of doing it. You don't have a traditional operating system that you can just go in and download a patch or put the antivirus on it and removal tool and remove it. It's something that the manufacturer is going to have to deal with. And I don't think most manufacturers, when they're making these devices, are putting money aside to deal with these types of problems that may come up in the future. But you don't want to leave a thermostat in there that's going to be a device that's attacking other things on your network or attacking other networks. So malware eradication is going to be, it was a problem for regular desktops. But generally we have most of the tools that we can fix that. But now it's even worse with these other devices because we can't just fix it. We can't just boot it up and go with it. So I think we got a lot of the traditional ones, and we're not perfect yet, right? So I'm a big Jeep guy, and I have a Jeep, and the particular one that I actually have has the vulnerability where someone can hack into your Jeep while you're driving and then turn your engine off, or you do other things with it by getting into the vehicle informant device. So these are the types of things that we should be concerned about, because this one now gets into a life safety issue, right? Someone can hack something to make you crash or something along those lines. So we still have a long way to go with this Internet of Things. I mean, this hack particularly just came out, and this is just one particular one. I'm sure all the other operating systems are very much possibly vulnerable as well. By the way, the operating system that's used for the Uconnect system for Chryslers, which was used for the Jeeps as well, I don't know if it was in their implementation where the problem came in from, but that operating system is made by BlackBerry and is currently the largest, has the largest market share for in-vehicle informant operating systems. So right now, that operating system that had that bug, for whatever reason, is on most of the cars out there on the road. So are they all vulnerable? I don't know, because it depends upon how each different ones implement it, but it doesn't make you feel very good at night, I don't think. Some of the things that we're starting to see, one of the problems you have with Internet of Things is you have a low-power device with low power, meaning the processor doesn't have the same level of power that you typically have. Some of them are real-time operating systems, and so they have a chip that just does one thing at a time, and it doesn't like handle multiple processes. And so when you have devices like that, building security into it, I don't know about you, but all the Internet of Things devices that you have in your home, whether it's your sprinkler system or your thermostat, does it have antivirus installed on it? I mean, so where's the security coming into this? So the ARM processors they're starting to build chips that have security set up into them with a trust zone or something like that in order to add security to those hardware. But we have to remember that we took a slow process of this low-end processor, low-power processor, to put it into this device so that we could, do whatever with it, be very efficient with it. Now you're going to put security on it. Security always slows everything else down, but we're at the point where we need it, right? So we're starting to see that coming in. Here's this next slide here is Belkin had some security flaws in their Wemo IoT devices, and they had just rolled out some fixes for it. So again, this is, and you notice that this was posted today. Well, today as we record this, November the 2nd, 2016. So because of some of these attacks that have happened and all this other stuff, you're starting to see this type of thing happen. How Belkin is going to fix all those devices, it's beyond me, because all the light bulbs that you have in your house that are connected to the internet, how they're all going to get done, I'm not 100% sure, but it seems like a monumental task for any company to have to deal with that, because you got to get end users to agree to it and get involved with it. One of the other problems I think that we run into too is just there is a lot of different operating systems. Now, typically on the desktop, we deal with Windows, we deal with Apple, and we deal with Linux. And that's pretty much it. And there's various flavors of various versions of each. However, when you get into the embedded market or the IoT market, there's literally all kinds of operating systems out there. And this is just a very short list of quite a few of them. You can look at the Wikipedia article there. It's an incomplete list when it does a comparison of real-time operating systems, but it's a very long list. And you start looking at all those, and you try and think, okay, how many of those have security embedded in them? I always think it's kind of a neat thing. If you have a product like your refrigerator or something and it has a computer based into it, it'd be interesting to do some research to try and figure out what operating system is actually running on it. For those network geeky guys out there that want to figure that stuff out. The QNX, that's the BlackBerry owned operating system. That's the one that's in cars that's out there. The Mentor Graphics is the name of the company that makes the Nucleus RTOS, and they're the ones that Garmin is now using for all their GPS devices. They just made an announcement that they're going to switch to using the Nucleus RTOS. So there's a lot. And you think about Garmin, how many devices do they have out there? A lot, right? So these operating systems are going to be widespread and all over the place. So that becomes an issue. You're now starting to see, here's one of those different IoT operating systems. They're starting to build in encryption now. And you notice this, of course, that news article is from 2 years ago, but up till 2 years ago, this is when they first started thinking, oh, we should probably put security in this. So you can kind of see that it seems like it's in the infancy now, security on the IoT side, and you're going to see a lot more of this type of thing where they're going to, like with the chips, they're going to start building in trust zones. You're going to start adding encryption to those things. You're going to see them put in firewalls. Those open SSH ports are probably going to be closed, or they're going to come up with some other type of way of communicating with those devices so that they can be secure, and I hope they get rid of these stupid default passwords that they're always using. And then we got all the do-it-yourselfers. You got these nice little Raspberry Pi things. You can make little robots and stuff in your house. Well, and this isn't really like a real-time operating system, because this one you can put like a real operating system on it, and it can multi-thread, and it can do, it can display, it can be connected to a display, it can connect to a network, it can connect USB devices to it, you can use it to make a robot that works, there's all kinds of things you can do with it. So there's a lot of people now developing for this that are amateurs that don't know anything about security, so now you have a whole bunch of new devices that you're putting on the network that now people that don't know anything about secure development are playing around with. Some people are actually using them for security devices. Some people are using them for hacking devices. So there's a big growth in that area.
I have one I have set up for security.
I saw a project, one that does facial recognition. I think it was on Microsoft's website, because you can use Windows IoT, Windows 10 IoT. There's a version of Windows for that. You can install it on a Raspberry Pi, and then you download this application, put it on there, and configure it. And you set up a camera, connect the camera to this device, and when you come up to the door, and you press there's a button you press, I don't know if it's a doorbell or what, it will take a picture of your face and determine whether or not you're a friend or a foe or whatever they call it. And if you're a friend, it says, hey, we recognize you, you're allowed to come in, and it unlocks the door. And if it's not, it says, hey, we do not recognize you, please leave. We're not letting you. And I was like, I love that. So it's a little project. You can get this project, and they have the little instructions. I think it's on MSDN or something like that. It gives you little instructions. But if you look up Windows 10 IoT, they got a bunch of little projects you can get. There's a number of websites that have, you just buy the kit from them, and they give you everything you need to do for do-it-yourself type of things. So there's some cool stuff with that, I think. But it also is a potential risk, right? Here's another thing we're adding to the network, and is it secure? I want to talk about this a little bit, Rob. This is my idea, and your feedback would be great, though, but because I'm introducing it here. But typically, we talk about least access principle, and that is you only give access to what is necessary. So, typical on a firewall, inbound traffic, we block inbound traffic, and we only allow inbound either requests that we've made out or certain ports that we've opened only for specific things. And whether that's a home network or whatever, that's typically how most all firewalls are set up. One of the other problems we have with firewalls is typically all outbound traffic is allowed. And this is still something that I see even in enterprise environments where they're like, oh, there's just too many things that people are trying to connect to. We can't handle, so we're just going to let all traffic out. And most home networks are set up this way. The problem when you just allow all traffic out is that any of these devices that you have on your internal network can now be used as a bot to attack other websites going through your firewall. Or they can be used to exfiltrate information out of your network and onto to the hackers if they need to. So you have to look at this and say, okay, well, how would I apply the least access rule to this? And this is one of the things that I'm thinking about is you could go to your firewall and you can make a list of rules. And if you think about it, your smart TV, it needs to have access to Hulu.com, Netflix.com, etc., whatever it is. And your Nest thermostat needs to get to Nest.com, but probably nowhere else, right? So if you actually limit your outbound traffic to only the places that those devices need, because you can look at the MAC address and you can make a rule for that MAC address with most firewalls. So you can actually set it up so that it limits where they can go to. So they cannot be used then to attack some other place. Problem is most home users can't do that, right? I'm sure Rob and I could do it, and some of my network students could do that, but the normal home user, they're not going to be able to do this type of thing. So they can get a firewall that has IDS or IPS on it, intrusion detection or prevention services. Some of them are IA-based, and they can look for traffic anomalies. In other words, they can say this MAC address always goes to xbox.com because it's an Xbox, and now all of a sudden it's accessing these other things, and I think that's weird. So I'm going to stop that. Problem that you have with the Xbox, though, is that there is a browser on it. You could use it to get to all kinds of other websites. I know you can get to YouTube and stuff like that from it. So that may be not a good example, but my irrigation control, my sprinkler system, it only needs to get to weather.com or NOAA.com, or NOAA.gov, whichever one it goes to get the information for weather, and that's the only website it needs to get access to. So I could limit those types of things. I was thinking when I'm sitting in the car, I'm like, someone needs to make a device that just deals with this for the end users. So the end users don't have to deal with all this stuff. It needs to be something like AI-based, and it needs to look for anomalous traffic, and it needs to look specifically for malware and prevent malware crossing that firewall. So like an application layer 7 type of firewall or something along those lines. Problem is those are really expensive. So actually I came across an actual new device that they have out. BitDefender makes a box that you can stick on your network that does exactly what I was thinking. I had $1 million idea and I just lost it. Somebody else already did it. It takes the thinking out of it for you so that all your Internet of Things devices it doesn't matter, because the box is going to be sitting in line between the device and the Internet, and it's going to look for anomalous traffic and filter that stuff out. And you can check that out if you're interested in it, the BitDefender Box. There's different ways to deploy it. I will tell you this, though, if you have AT&T Uverse, your AT&T modem will not, you can't turn off DHCP. So if you're using that device for your wireless access or for your DHCP for your LAN, you're not going to be able to use this box in the traditional way. And the traditional way is you plug it into your access point, and then you turn off the DHCP on it, you turn DHCP on this, and then this device then grabs all the traffic to itself and then passes everything on. It can be deployed in line in front of your access point, between your access point and the your connection directly to the Internet, your ISP connection, and it acts as a pass-through, and it does just like any other pass-through would. It looks at all the network traffic, connects to their cloud, and looks for different types of information, so it doesn't have to have a lot of processing power. And by the way, this is another Internet of Things thing that helps you with your Internet of Things thing. But it obviously has an operating system on it. It's running, I don't even know what it's running. It's probably running some type of Linux or something. But it's running and looking at all the traffic there, and it's going to look and block the type of traffic that you don't want for the devices that you don't have anti-malware for. So it can help prevent those types of things and then block traffic. It's got a real nice, I probably should have brought some of it up. You can go in and look at your statistics. You go to their website, look at your statistics, and it tells you how many attacks happened, how many things it prevented, on all that kind of stuff. So you get statistics, you know that it's working and what it's going through and all that stuff. $1 million idea. Somebody else got it. Do you have anything else to add?
No, I think it's just making sure that we're doing our due diligence, and step one is to always move away from the defaults of anything. Even though it's the easiest thing to deploy,
right.
Just making sure that, you are, changing those default passwords to something that's more secure, right? And the other item that I would probably start looking at as well is doing the least access. Yeah, it's going to take some work because you have to define, what items or what objects you want to access what resource set on the internet. But, if you're limiting their capabilities, then even if they potentially do get compromised somehow, they won't be able to get there because it's another device that has to be compromised in order to change the rule set in order for them to allow the attack to go out, right?
Right.
So, putting in this layered approach is one of the things that, from a security standpoint is kind of drilled into us, right? You put in all these layers so that you make it difficult to get in the first place, and if there is a compromise, that there's enough layers there that you can potentially catch the problem and then take corrective action before it escalates out to something like a denial of service attack like we had on the 21st. So those are just a couple of things that I take away from, the Internet of Things is now, it's up to all of us, whether we're a security professional or whether we're somebody at home who, works at a restaurant. If you have an internet connection and you have any of these devices connected to it, you're going to have to start, going beyond what the manufacturer has laid out as, well, we have it set up so that it's an ease of use thing. You just plug it in and it works, and you get, you connect your TV now, your smart TV, to the internet, and now you can watch whatever you want under the sun. Well, now we're going to have to make steps to say, okay, this is the MAC address of the smart TV, and here's the 3 sites that I'm going to let it go to, right? I'm going to let it go to Netflix, Hulu, and something else, right? Take your pick. And that's it. Anything above and beyond that,
Amazon,
just not getting there.
Right.
Right. Well, and that's what I mean is you would define the sites that it could go to, right? And that would be it. But that's the individual will now have to start in on, you mentioned it in our last session, is that, if you're in IT, you're kind of a security professional. Well, I think now we're starting into this point of, if you have any device that connects to the internet, you need to do security. Like, there's no way around it. And I think what manufacturers need to do, right, I think what manufacturers need to do is start the process from the very beginning. Like, right, hey, you're plugging in a brand new TV, great. Or you put in a new router, for example, or a new access point. Right off the bat, it says, hey, the device has scanned the network, and it's found these devices. What sites do you want them to go to? So I'm going to block everything except for the sites that you're going to allow this to happen, right, to connect to. I think that's where, from a security standpoint, these manufacturers need to start moving to.
Right. Well, Graham, this is a great session. I think hopefully a lot of people that listen to this will get some information out of it and at least be able to address, at least understand what the risks are and be able to start addressing it in some type of intelligent fashion. Yes. I mean, if you think about it, even in 20 years ago when I first put our first security devices on the network, I never even thought about that this is another device I'm connecting to the internet. How am I going to secure this? I think it was a couple of years after, because we put in some door lock systems, and they are IP-based. They use PoE on them, and basically it's a card reader, so that when you walk up to the door, you read your card, and it opens up the lock. Well, back then when I first deployed it, never thought about it. Now it's on its own separate VLAN, like probably 10 years ago, I decided to segment the traffic just so that I would put all the security stuff on its own separate VLAN because it doesn't need to have access to the internet. But it's little things like that, you know, you got to take a look at.
Right.
Well, I want to thank everybody for listening in on this, and I want to thank Rob for talking on this. And if you want to follow us in the future, go to learnsecurity.org/TU for Trainers Underground. Or you can also find it on facebook.com/learnsecurity. Both places, when we have next sessions, we'll have those listed there so that you can log in and follow us or even ask questions live. Thanks, Rob.
Thanks, Donald. Have a great night, everybody.